Superhero comic books as we know them today have their start in the late 1930s and early 1940s. While the medium went through many ups and downs throughout its run, until the advent of comic book movies in the early 2000s, it remained a relatively niche and underground type of content that only nerds were depicted reading. Of course, popular titles were exceptions such as Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, which were more widely known and accepted. Thus, considering that the primary demographic was young male readers, and the fact that most writers were males as well, early characters served the male ego. Male characters were depicted as the ideal, strong, brave, muscular, smart. They didn't have flaws and were seen as perfect. The ideal for viewers to insert themselves into stories as, look at Superman, he's more than an everyman, he's the everyman. Both American and an immigrant, a city boy as well as a country folk. Anyone could see themselves reflected in him. In the same token, women also served to please their primary male audience. Female characters would usually be quite one-dimensional, serving as either the love interest, a femme fatale figure, or to create romantic tension. In the case of Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy was originally the love interest, Black Cat the femme fatale character, and Mary Jane was originally introduced to create a sort of romantic tension. Even when the women were the protagonists of their own stories, they didn't fare much better. On many occasions, they would lose clothing in particular spots, or wear particularly revealing outfits, or just act in ways to attract more readers. Even Wonder Woman, the modern archetype of a badass superhero, had her weakness in her early days constructed around bondage. If someone were to tie her up with her lasso, she'd be powerless, and this weakness still pops up in modern tellings from time to time. And when the love interest didn't serve its purpose, or readers grew tired of them, then the character would be killed off for more motivation for the main character. This happened to Spider-Man's girlfriend Gwen Stacy, who was thrown off a bridge and died with Spidey not being able to save her, something which has served to motivate and inform the character ever since. Or Kyle Rayner, whose girlfriend he found stuffed in a fridge after returning home from a mission, an action which again served as motivation and emotional turmoil for the character. The second example became so prominent that the syndrome of killing off female characters for motivation to shake things up was named fridging. Things have improved over time. Fridging is seen less and less. For male characters, this change becomes more apparent after Stan Lee took over Marvel. Male characters have their vulnerabilities and weaknesses and doubts. They're no longer perfect, they are superhuman, which makes them better characters for it, something which Stan advocated for a lot. The change for female characters are more gradual. Only after the 2010s do we start seeing a noticeable shift, although a small one. It's in 2010, due to a more woke culture, that changes on the treatment of women start being noticeable in a drastic way. With more female readers engaging with comics than ever before, more female writers showing up and working on projects, more female characters started coming to the pages and getting their own solo titles. But even then, their primary appearances were still over-sexualized and flannered for the male ego. Gwenpool even points this out in one of her first appearances. In the mid-2010s, many female characters got their appearance and costumes renewed and updated for modern audiences, all part of Marvel's efforts to seem more woke. But in some occasion, they still get over-sexualized. And even though many characters, both old and new, have gotten their own titles, there are few that have gotten their big screen treatment. Since its inception in 2008, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has amassed quite a fame, earning billions at the box office. Yet the first female superhero to appear only got her own movie 10 years after her initial debut. Characters are showing up more and more on the page, but as they are still seen as a risk, their integration to the big screen is slower than their male counterparts. There are very few female-led comic projects that have come out. The first few were seen as failures, bad movies that gave female-led comic films a bad reputation. But after the success of Wonder Woman, more female-led projects are being financed by Marvel and some by DC. But is this enough? These great characters are getting more and more appearances, but if we still stick to the ways of the past, if we see them as risks just to make a film about them, then how can they shine? Things need to change. The question is, when will they?